All right, let's try again. All right there, Dad?
Yeah, fine. And family all right?
Yeah, everyone's all right, Dad. Yeah, good. Looking forward to coming home at Christmas
At
now.
Christmas. Oh, yeah. Nice to see you all. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do a special episode from the pub, innit?
Yeah.
Yeah, with a few beers. Um, yeah, all right. Let's just get into it then, Dad. A lot to speak about this week. What do you want to start with?
Well, I've been watching that Piers Morgan interview with Professor Finkelstein.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, I was all for Israel, all pro-Israel, but after listening to him, it makes you think that what he's saying is probably true. You know, like if
Yeah,
you
well, okay. Let's get in. I'll put the video on now so everyone else can have a look at it, Dad, and then we can chat about it after, yeah? So
yeah.
if you're watching, yeah, just have a look. It's about 5 minutes long. Have a look and see what you think, and then see whether you agree or not. Enjoy.
You are the son of two people who survived the Holocaust, who were both in concentration camps. You're a Jewish man, and you know how incendiary that Substack has proven to be with Jewish people around the world, many of whom have felt this is the nearest thing to the Holocaust of World War II that they've endured. What your parents went through, being revisited on them in these kibbutzes on October the 7th. What do you feel about them? I mean, how would your parents have felt about you literally on the day that this happened, talking about heroic resistance, talking about that you will never begrudge the scenes, the stars in heaven are looking kindly down, glory, glory, the souls of Gaza go marching on. How would your parents have felt about that, coming out of concentration camps, surviving the Holocaust of World War II?
Well, first of all, anything I write, I have my parents looking at the screen behind me over my shoulders, in a metaphorical sense. I am very conscious every moment of my existence. Every moment of my existence goes back to the martyrdom of my family. So it's not as if suddenly you're posing a question to me that never occurred to me. Quite the contrary, I do need, even 30 years after their death, I need the moral validation that came from my parents' martyrdom and the extermination of their family. How would my parents have reacted? My guess is if on the first day they heard that inmates in a concentration camp burst its gates, I think my parents would be very pleased at that fact. As the events became clearer, my guess, but this is pure speculation, my guess is my parents would go out with their hearts, would go out to those who burst the gates of the concentration camp and whose lives were destroyed. Now, you will say to me, completely legitimately, you would say, well, what would your parents feel about the innocents who were slaughtered in the atrocities on that date? So I'm going to give you as close an answer as I could give, as I'm able to. I once asked my late mother, I said to her, what was your feeling when you heard that the German cities were being terror bombed during World War II? The carpet bombing of the German cities targeting civilians. What was your feeling? And my mother's response to me was, quote, our feeling was, if we're going to die, we're going to take some of them with us. Now, that's not the most morally elevated statement. I agree. And do I wish my mother had and my father had a heightened sensitivity to German civilian life? I suppose I would wish it. But I will tell you, Piers, to the last day of my parents' life, it was unthinkable that they would have a kind word to say about Germans. And it was unthinkable that I would ever quarrel with them on that point.
Okay.
I accepted that given their life experience, they had the right to hate the people who destroyed their lives.
Okay.
And the people
Professor
of
Finkelstein.
Gaza have the right to hate the people who destroyed their lives.
Professor Finkelstein, thank you for that answer.
All right then, Dad. Yeah. So, what do you, having watched that, what do you think? What was it that convinced you?
Well, if in the concentration camps in the Second World War, if all these Jews would have broken out of the concentration camps and killed Germans, everybody would say, "No, that's fair enough." They'd have said, "That's all right." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, in a way, the Palestinians are doing the Hamas are doing the same thing, because they're in like a concentration camp, aren't they?
Yeah. So just in case people are going to say, well, yeah, but concentration camp, they're not gassing all the Jews to death. So of course that's, there's no kind of moral equivalency here, Dad. It's not like, oh, this one's worse than this, but this is what a concentration camp, the dictionary definition, a place in which large numbers of people, especially political prisoners or members of persecuted minorities, are deliberately imprisoned in a relatively small area with inadequate facilities, sometimes to provide forced labor or to await mass execution. The term is most strongly associated with the several hundred camps established by the Nazis in Germany and occupied Europe. But, the first part of that, Dad, that's Gaza, right?
The first part is that they're enclosed in Gaza, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And do you know where the history of the concentration? Do you know where Hitler got the idea for concentration camps from, Dad?
No.
He didn't come up with it, right? So the first concentration camps were. Which country do you think was the first to use concentration camps, Dad?
Well, British, were they?
Yeah. So in the Boer War at the end of the 19th century, the British were fighting against all the Dutch and Germans. They were burning down all the farms because that's how the Boers, the German Dutch, were getting their food and stuff from. So they were destroying all the farms. All the women and children had nowhere to go. So the British put hundreds of thousands of them in these camps in tents in the middle of nowhere. 18,000, well, between 18,000 and 28,000 Boers died, 80% of them children. And this is where Hitler got his idea from, Dad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at it like that, Gaza is a concentration camp. That's what's going on. And I mean, what Professor Finkelstein's saying there, Dad, I can't. It's horrible, isn't it? It's horrible to. I still can't say you can justify any of this, Dad, but I do understand it. That's the most important thing, right?
Well, I mean, to me, they've got to give them a state. They've got to give Palestine a state, and it'll end up that way. I don't think it will end up that way, but how many people have got to die first?
Yeah, I don't know, Dad. Who knows? I honestly, I can't see how at this point, a two-state solution is going to come about, Dad, with the people who are in power at the moment,
Well, it's got to be that way. I mean, it's got to be that way. Otherwise, this is going to happen again, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because
the whole thing.
They won't get rid of. It's impossible to get rid of all Hamas, isn't it?
I think the only way you can get rid of Hamas then is by killing everyone in the Gaza Strip, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, killing all the Palestinians. Yeah.
And then, well, what was the point in that?
Yeah. It's just that they've got the land. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
But they'll have the land, but then all the surrounding countries, I mean, Hezbollah and all these other terrorist groups are going to, you know, and no one's going to want to have anything to do with any Israelis, Dad. If they kill 2.2 million people, you can imagine that Israelis all around the world are not going to feel safe. It's silly. If Netanyahu cares about the people, then he needs to, you know, basically suck it up and say, okay.
I mean, Hamas, they should say, like, look, we'll give you all the hostages back, but let's sit round a table, you know, and reason sensibly instead of all this killing, like, you know.
Oh yeah, you know, again, Dad, you know, won't find any argument from me on that. You know, it's yeah. I just thought the point that Finkelstein was making there about his parents when he was asked, he asked his mum, right, how did you feel when you heard that the Allies were carpet bombing Germany and killing all these innocent civilians? And she said, you know, well, if we're going to die, I want to take as many of them with us. And you can understand, right, how Palestinians, everyone's like, oh, yeah, but the Palestinians, they're supporting Hamas. And you're like, well, yeah, of course they are. Hamas is the only one sticking up for them, right? America's not sticking up for them. Europeans.
Right. They won the freedom. They won their land, don't they? They won their land and being left in peace, don't they, you know?
Yeah, and like...
Let's face it, they mustn't have, because everything that comes in, everything has to come in through by road, doesn't it? Why can't they grow their own crops or something? I mean, everything is 200. They have 200 lorry loads every day going.
Yeah.
Why can't they do it? Why can't they do it themselves? Like, you know.
Well, I mean, a number of things that if you look at like farms in Israel, what they're doing, Dad, they're using all these chemicals, right, to put on the food like we do all around the world. But you can't import chemicals into Gaza because you could use them to make bombs, Dad, right? That's their argument. So they're not able to use any of the latest... I mean, look, I'm not for chemicals on food anyway, Dad, but that's what the rest of the world's doing. That's what Israel's doing, and Palestinians can't do that, Dad. They're not allowed any equipment that could go to hospitals, anything that Israel says could be used for, you know, to fight against them. They're not allowed that. I mean,
oh no, I mean they're being governed. I mean they're being governed by Israel in a way, aren't they? You know?
Oh, not in a way, completely, Dad. I mean, Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip in 2005, but they still control the borders. They control what goes in, what goes out. They can turn on the water turn off the water at any time, turn off the electric at any time. You know, it's a concentration camp, Dad, and
it is. I mean, Israel. See, they're to blame as well. Israel have got to give them a state and let them live in peace in their own land, isn't they? You know.
Yeah,
they've got to say. They've got to come to a state and say, look, this is your land, this is our land, and let's all live in peace. I mean, why can't people be sensible like that? I just can't understand it. You know.
Well, I mean, as I said to you before, Dad, it's like it's not. I feel the same as well, but I do understand about American politics and IPAC, the Israeli lobby group there, Dad. They are very, very strong, and they control American politics essentially. And I'm not saying they in a conspiratorial way. It's all there. There's a book being written about it, which I've read, and it's fascinating, Dad. But how?
I mean, America they could pressurize. America could pressurize Israel to give them a state. They could do, because they're the only person they listen to is America, isn't it?
Oh, the only people that can get Israel to do this is America, Dad. Yeah, without a doubt.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
You know, but they give them $4 billion or $3.8 billion every year. They give $2 billion to Egypt, basically to just, you know, ignore the situation. So, you know, I don't think this is not what a lot of Americans want, Dad. They actually want to destroy Hamas as well. But I think if the rest of the world kind of, you know, changes and says, well, look, we're not okay with this anymore. We want to end this situation. They have to have their own state and be able to live with dignity. I think probably America will start to.
Yeah, but like I said, I can't see them getting rid of Hamas completely. I mean, all these underground things and that. I mean, they'll have to completely obliterate Palestine, the Palestinians, won't they?
Well, yeah, I mean,
to get Hamas, they'll have to kill everybody.
yeah, I mean, you look at the north, Dad. It's basically rubble, right? There's, I think, 80% of buildings. I think was the number. I'll get it. 80% of buildings in the north have been obliterated, and only 15%.
And it's going to be the same in the south as well, isn't it?
Yeah, at present, about 15% of the buildings have been destroyed, but there's still 85% left to destroy, right? I mean, it's what a situation, and like the everyone's going on about the Hamas was using the Al-Sharif, the hospital, as a command center, right? They had the tunnels underground, and the only reason that the Israelis knew about that is because they were the ones who built them in the 1980s, right? And they actually themselves had a command center under the hospital there, Dad, that they were, when they were controlling the Gaza Strip. So it's basically Israel's doing one thing and then saying that they're doing it. But actually, it's, I mean, look, yeah, we say it every week. I'm not a fan of Hamas, Dad, but I do understand what they did. I don't justify it, but I do understand it. And I do understand the Israeli response to that as well. It's just you can't be allowed to do whatever you want on this planet, Dad. There has to be rules, right? That's why we have human rights laws.
But the rules are a waste of time because in all wars, all the countries break the rules. We broke the rules in the World War II, bombing civilians. So in wars, it happens in every war. Like in what's happening in Russia, they're all breaking the rules, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, the strong countries that sit on the Security Council, of course, they can do whatever they want because they can just veto anything that goes through the United Nations. But Israel shouldn't technically be able to do that, right? But the only reason they're able to is because the rich countries like America and Britain support them. So they should be able to rein them in, right? And say, enough's enough. Because you can't say this is defense anymore, Dad. Like almost 15,000 people have been killed now. I think more than 60% of them kids. You can't call that self-defense, Dad.
Well, no, I mean, but they've got to come to sit round the bloody table. But no, how many people have got to die before they do that? And eventually they'll have to sit round the table, won't they?
Well, I hope you're right on that, Dad. I do, but I'm not so optimistic. I mean, of course, I think eventually, but I don't know how many years that's going to be. Not with Netanyahu in power is my feeling, Dad. He's a horrible, horrible individual. This was largely his fault anyway, Dad. That wall is supposed to be impregnable. The only reason they were able to get through it is because he put all of the troops from the Gaza Strip into the West Bank because they're harassing all of the Palestinians living there, right? Getting them to move away from their land, and that's where all the troops were, Dad. So he's a nasty, nasty individual, and I think with him in power, it's unlikely you're going to see any change.
I think America and Europe they've got to pressurize him to give him a state. I mean that's my feelings. I mean let them in peace. Like I just can't understand the hatred. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean we're in complete agreement on that. Anyway, Dad, I think I don't fight. Yeah, there has to be a two-state solution, and we've got to push them towards that, Dad. Anyway, well, I'm glad you've that Mr. Professor Finkelstein was able to get through to you, Dad, because
Yeah, because I was all pro Israel, and so then when that Finkelstein had an interview with Piers Morgan, it makes you think, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, Dad. Yeah, you've got to listen to Jewish voices. Those Jewish and Palestinian voices are the most important ones, Dad. Right? Not assholes.
Henry, on the home front now, right?
Yeah.
The buzzers. They're trying to get people to not use the cars. They're trying to get people to use the trains, right? Trains and buses. And yet the bus services now, there's 82% of they have cuts in the bus services, and in Wales it's 48%. Now, and I can see this because it's happening now. When I get a bus into town, which I go about three or four times a week, it's standing room only because there's that many. They've cut the services down because, well, partly because they can't get the drivers, right?
Yeah.
But it's all right coming from town because you're the first on. But when they're coming from Mumbles, it's full with the students and everything like that. And even people I've seen them there, we're all waiting at the bus stop, it's 10 of them. The wheelchairs can't get on because it's only standing room only left. You know, so why, if they're trying to get people not to use the cars, how can you cut the bus services and trains? It's just crazy.
Oh, I agree with you. The one thing I disagree with you on there, Dad, is that they're trying to get people onto trains and buses. They're not. They say they are, because they know that's what they've got to say because of the climate crisis, but they're not actually interested in that, Dad. They're interested in people buying cars and people buying petrol where they make money. You know, the Tories are into privatization. They're not into public transportation, Dad.
But why is there a shortage of bus drivers? I mean, how many
they've cut. There's been a 38% reduction in financial support from local authorities. Dad, local authorities are being strangled by the Tories, right? So it comes down to money. They say on the one hand they're like, yeah, we care about the climate crisis. We're one of the best countries in the world, but then they do things like this, Dad, which, you know, it's the complete opposite of what they're saying they're doing, right? 60% reductions in 80 local authorities. London unaffected. Worst affected areas: East Midlands, Wales, and the Northeast. I mean,
yeah, Wales is 48% reduction in the services, which is that's why the buses now they're completely full. So the people in wheelchairs can't get on.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stories we've got today, Dad, they're all related. So the next one you were talking about was the what was it? The head of Centrica, was it? Centrica's boss. Who was it that was issuing a warning about a winter warning, Dad?
Oh yeah, amount British gas profits went up from January to July, £800 million predicted profit in 2003. £800 million. Well, they can't pay the gas and electric bills, and they're making profits of £800 million. I mean, it's disgusting, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, and that the boss, Mr. O'Shea or whatever, took home 1.4 million bonus on top of like a 800,000 salary or something, right?
That's right. Yeah. So the bosses are getting the money. Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, they should be. What's that tax they on? And they stopped it now. The tax. What's that tax called? Extra tax.
Oh, I'm not sure. They had what do you mean? They had a price cut, a price cap, right? On 29 million households.
1,930 per year price cap in January, a rise of 5%.
Right, which is with inflation. Yeah, I mean, I mean, again, that it's just profits, right? And the Tories are just helping out their friends in industry with a blatant disregard for the people, right?
Yeah.
Again, the next one after that, what was that one, Dad? The tax cuts.
Oh, tax cuts for the rich, you mean? Tories find their magic money tree to cut tax for the rich.
Yeah. And again, the way they sell it, Dad, is very dishonest, but you can understand how people fall for it. They don't call it an inheritance tax. They call it a death tax, right? So straight away, people are like, what the hell? You shouldn't have a tax on dying. What are you doing? but the only people it affects is the top 4%. Anyone is able to give £500,000 in a house or whatever to their. Each parent can give £500,000 in inheritance without having to pay this tax debt. Anything over that, and you've got to pay tax. So it's only going to be affecting people who are multi-billionaires, right?
Oh yeah, it's all the rich again. Yeah.
And yet poor people will be like, oh yeah, but why should they have to pay more taxes? It's like, that's how it works. If you don't have progressive taxation like that, then you don't have schools, you don't have hospitals. It's going to cost something like £7 billion to scrap that. And what they're going to do instead, universal credit, which is given to the most vulnerable people in the UK, it's set to go up with inflation, Dad, and they're going to halve it so that people are going to be losing out, right? In order to pay. It's not like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, why should they have to pay more? But if they don't pay more, then this happens. So now they're taking away benefits from the poorest people to give to the rich who don't need it.
Yeah. That happens it's happening all the time, isn't it? Like, I mean,
it is, and the working class, a lot of them supported that, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that. Cameron now, he got this job now. He's a peer, so he can get that extra money by being a peer, and he gets a big mansion in London with tennis courts and swimming pools and everything. Oh, dear. It's just, the rich get richer all the time, don't they? No.
And this is the guy that brought Brexit as well. Remember that he's the guy that instigated Brexit, completely crushed the economy. And now he's being made a lord for that.
That's right. Yeah.
Congratulations on one of the most calamitous decisions the country has ever taken.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, they said that what's his name, Boris. Now the thing is, the only good thing he's done is get us out of Brexit. That's not a good thing. Getting out of Brexit is a bloody worst thing he's done, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. People are still living in denial, I think, Dad, over that. Like, as if it's not as bad as we think. I mean, it's God Almighty. Yeah, the media, Dad, they can stop reading The Sun and all this. Well, most of the newspapers, to be fair, but another one, Dad. Go on.
I've just been reading as well. This super trawlers given free rein to destroy our seas, like,
Yeah.
I mean, one's called the Dirk. It's a Dutch trawler, and it's fishing off Brighton, and the width of the nets are 200 meters. A double decker that's a double decker's 12 meters, and that's how wide the nets are.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I mean, I've watched videos of them, Dad. I mean, they literally just take everything. It's
they're taking dolphins and everything. Now they're dead by the time so they have to throw them back in that, like, They get everything in the nets.
Well, they're supposed to, by law, they're supposed to announce within 48 hours whether there's any mammals that have been marine mammals that have been caught there. But the newspaper put in a freedom of information request to find out the numbers, and they said no such numbers exist. So clearly people are not reporting it. So, how many? Yeah, I mean, Dad, it's akin to just dragging a massive net through the savannah in Africa to get antelope, and then taking all the lions, all the elephants. Yeah,
he's taking all the reefs and the good things away from the bottom of the ocean, aren't you? Yeah.
I mean,
all the marine life. Yeah.
The one thing I did find a bit annoying in this story, though, Dad, was everyone was going on about the dolphins and that, and I was like, okay, but if you take all of the fish and leave the dolphins are not going to have any food anyway. And that's a problem. People don't think of that. They just think of like, oh, the dolphins, we're killing dolphins, but we're wiping out all the fish on this planet, Dad, in the seas. So all the whales, the dolphins, the penguins, they're all going extinct because there's nothing left to eat, and people don't acknowledge that.
Have they got to be 12 miles from our shores?
Is it something? Yeah, 12 miles, 20
I
kilometers.
think it's 12 miles, isn't it? Yeah. Well, they've been fishing off Brighton and Aberdeen, like, you know.
And so much for Brexit being able to protect the country, taking back control, that, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there was another thing as well about this. What was it now? Oh, right. Now, the methane what the cows produce.
Yeah.
Which is not good, right?
Yeah.
Well, in Sweden, they've tested now, and they put seaweed into the cattle's feed.
Yeah.
And they found that 90% reduction in methane comes out of the cows. 90%.
Yeah.
By using seaweed. The only trouble is, if all the wool did it, there wouldn't be enough seaweed for all the feed,
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. Yeah.
But Great Britain they're gonna test it next year.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder what they would do.
What the methane? Where does that? What is it? Where it comes out of the cow's mouth, or what?
Oh yeah, methane is produced, Dad. If you cut down a load of trees or bushes or whatever and just leave it there, Dad, that will eventually it'll create methane, right? Especially if there's water around. So when cows are digesting all their food, it produces methane in the stomach, and
so when they
burp and fart, when they burp and fart, mostly burping, they're burping out methane. So one thing with this is that I was thinking about. So now all of a sudden the animals that are outside eating grass, what are they going to do now? They're going to be inside, Dad, right? Eating fucking seaweed, right? So
it's mixed with the feed, like, yeah.
So then I guess the animals.
It's not all seaweed. It's only they have a bag of seaweed in massive feed, like, so it's not. But if all the wool did it, there wouldn't be enough seaweed anyway. So
I mean, the one thing is, does that mean those animals then are going to go inside? Because otherwise they'll be outside eating grass, right?
Oh yeah, they'd be inside and eating out of the trough. Yeah.
Right. So then you're basically pushing all the animals that are outside into factory farms, Dad. Right. Again, I mean, it's like this to me. That's not an answer. Everyone says they're against factory farms. The answer here is for people to start eating. Plant-based meats, plant-based protein, and the artificial meats that are being made, Dad. Cultured meat. Yeah. They taste exactly the same. The texture's exactly the same, but they're basically made in laboratories, right? The same as beer is.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just think there's the land issue as well, Dad, as you've said about the seaweed. We use about 45% of the land, ice-free land, for animal agriculture. How much of the sea are we going to have to start using if we're using seaweed, Dad, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And well, there wouldn't be enough seaweed, then, right, for all over the world to do the same thing. Even if it's successful, like,
I mean, well, from a climate perspective, I imagine if it works, it would be better. But there's loads of testing they need to do, and the thing that scares me about it, Dad, is
90% reduction in Sweden. So the tests are pretty right, aren't they?
Up to 90%, it said, yeah. But there's lots of things. There's lots of variables about that, Dad. But the worrying thing is like the the COP is happening now, the Conference of the Parties in Abu Dhabi, Dad, right?
Yeah.
So you've got all these, basically it should be all of the world's leaders there trying to get us to zero carbon as soon as possible, right? But the reality is you've got all these oil companies there. You've got JBS, all these meat companies there, Dad. And those people, they're all going behind the scenes trying to get, governments to buy more and more gas and oil and to say that eating meat is good for the planet and stuff like that, Dad. It's nonsense. It's unbelievable. That's the people who are going. More of these lobbyists go than the people from poor countries in the Pacific who are going underwater, Dad.
Yeah.
It's an absolute joke. The Saudi Arabian government now is trying to get poorer countries hooked on gas and coal and oil rather than.
Yeah, but that's the same. Because it's a rich country, they can do anything they want. It's like they've overtaken the golf now and football, again, all the top footballers, all the top golfers, because of the money. They're giving them 50 million to play,
Yeah, I know. But they shouldn't. The thing is, they shouldn't be having that money, Dad, for selling oil and gas. They've got all that money. Instead of that, put all the money into solar, get it off of oil and gas. They've got deserts, Dad. Let's get massive solar plants there and sell that instead, Connect your energy grids up to. But the poorer countries, Dad, in like Africa, whatever, they can't go down the same route that we did by burning gas and oil, Dad. If they do, we're absolutely fucked. So for them to leapfrog over that technology, they've got to go straight to renewables, Dad. But they can't afford it. So the richer countries, the UK, Japan, America, Europe, they've got to pay for that transition, Dad, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're absolutely screwed. If we start to if all these countries in Asia and Africa start building like oil and gas infrastructure, that's locked in for the next 30, 40 years, Dad,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nightmare, and it all comes down to all of this again, Dad, isn't it? It's all about money, power, and I suppose just capitalism, isn't it?
Oh, of course. Because we're going to produce more oil now, aren't we? Because they're giving all these tenders away, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're rubbing their, the guy that's running the COP is the head of the fossil fuel industry in Abu Dhabi, Dad, right? It's like, what the fuck do you expect him to be doing?
So they're just using that meeting as a trading post, really,
exactly. It's an absolute farce now, Dad. Up until a few years ago, I think people had a little bit of hope in it, even though that was still going on. But now it's like, come on, why are we paying for this? Do it on Zoom. If you're just going to fuck around, just do it on Zoom. It's a joke, Dad, isn't it? But until enough people get angry about it and take to the streets, nothing, unfortunately, is going to change. It never has done.
No.
So,
no. I can imagine just in years to come, there'd be riots all over the bloody world, won't there? People taken to the streets, for dear. Huh?
Oh, that's when you see like people complaining about Just Stop Oil. Oh, they stopped me getting to work. I'm working class. You're like, they're doing that for you, mate. If they don't do it, and if the worst happens, you getting to work is going to be the least of your fucking problems. Having food is going to be a problem. And but people just again, they come the media, Dad. The media is owned by the very same billionaires that don't want any change because they're doing all right out with this system, right?
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. The problems are gargantuan, Dad. I can't honestly. I don't know how we can get out of it without mass civil disobedience. But people just don't seem prepared to do that.
Oh no! Eventually, there'd be riots all over the bloody place, isn't it? Really, all over the world, aren't they?
Yeah, but sadly, it'll be too late at that point.
The thing is, with these two wars going on now, people seem to put in the background now about we're ruining the planet because like it's the methane and all things like that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's gone on the background now, isn't it? Because of the two wars.
And fighting wars, Dad. The military is responsible for, I think, around 6% of global emissions every year, right? Mostly the American military. They're just burning through oil every day for helicopters and planes and tanks. But all of this, Dad, it's all taking massive amounts of it's burning massive amounts of carbon. So we cannot deal with the climate crisis without stopping wars, again. But you're right, Dad. Yeah, how can people, when you switch on the TV and it's just that Palestine, Israel, Ukraine.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to concentrate on anything else, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's gone in. Everything else has gone in the background now, isn't it? No.
And one of the consequences of the climate crisis, Dad, is that you are going to have more and more conflict. So the TVs are going to be filled up with more and more conflict, and people are going to have less and less time and patience to actually focus on the larger problems, right?
Oh yeah, for climate change. Yeah. I mean, if there was no wars going on, they can concentrate on the climate change. But now it's just like I said, it's been put in the background now because of the two wars, isn't it?
But the thing is, though, that even when there weren't any wars going on, they weren't concentrating on it. Then they'll always find something else, won't they? It was the 2008 crisis. Then it's Brexit and Trump, and then it's always something that seems to be given more precedence than the big important issues, isn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, that was good. Yeah, rant over.
Well, it'd be nice if we could sort the world out, Simon, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, we'll do it. In person. I'm sure we'll be able to do it, Dad. We'll get in the pub across from you on a quiet day and have a couple of Guinnesses and do it there, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, it should be good. All right. Well, I'll get this off to you, Dad, and I'll speak to you on the weekend, is it?
Yeah, speak to you on the weekend, boy. Yeah.
All right. Have a good one, Dad.
Yeah. Okay, ta-ra, boy. Ta-ra.
Ta-ra, boy. Ta-ra.